This video is sponsored by Audible. For a free audiobook, use the link in the description below. Welcome back to the series where I'm tier ranking all 256 types of Twinborn from Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. This is part 8 of the series, which means after I rank these 16 types, we will be halfway through this series. As always, a few of these names come from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook, but most of them were created by me and other members of the Exploring the Cosmere Discord server. If you'd like to help come up with names for future videos, make sure you join the server. That'll be linked in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into this tier ranking. The first type we have in this video is Fairyfly. Fairyflies can use their elementic aluminum to wipe their internal elementic reserves, and they can use their ferrochemical iron to store physical weight. This is one of the gnats of the Twinborn world. Their elementic aluminum doesn't do much for them because they can't burn any other elementic metals. So I'm going to put this right in D tier. Next up, we have Icon. Icons can use their elementic brass to soothe the emotions of others, and they can use their ferrochemical aluminum to store identity. The name Icon comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook, and Icons have the reputation of being natural leaders. The elementic brass is pretty good. You can use it to manipulate others, get them to do what you want. And ferrochemical aluminum is one that we really don't know much about at all. I've went into detail about it in other parts of the series, so if you haven't watched the other parts, I highly recommend doing so. I'll link the playlist to all of the parts in the description of the video. But yeah, I won't go into too much detail. Just know that ferrochemical aluminum hasn't been used much, even by the Terrace people. So we don't really know what it would do. I'm gonna have to rank this pretty low. I think it's gonna go in C tier for me, yeah. Next up, we have Navigator. Navigators can use their elementic iron to pull metals, and they can use their ferrochemical zinc to store mental speed. This name also comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook. Navigators have the reputation of being nimble and quick-witted iron swingers. I think this is a pretty good combo. Really, anything that involves ferrochemical zinc, in my opinion, is a good power, because being able to speed up your mental speed enhances almost anything you do in life. It's basically raising your IQ for a temporary amount of time. Now, sure, whenever you actively store it, you're gonna be dumber, pretty much. Your thoughts are gonna work slower, but I feel like that would be perfect for just sitting around and watching some, I don't know, TV shows, maybe like Smiling Friends. I feel like that would help make that show bearable. But anyways, I think combining ferrochemical zinc with elementic iron would be pretty good, just like the reputation says. Nimble and quick-witted iron swingers, they could be like a Spider-Man type of hero in a way. As long as you have sources of metal above you, you can use those sources of metal to pull on and kind of swing yourself from building to building or light fixture to light fixture. So maybe a navigator would be like a vigilante of sorts, fighting crime in whatever city they live in. What else would they be good at though? I mean, I feel like they'd be pretty good in a battle as well. The navigator would be able to quickly calculate the right trajectories and everything to pull weapons out of people's hands, pull people towards them at the right times, things like that. I think navigator's pretty good. Gonna go in A tier. Next up, we have Metalmapper. Metalmappers can use their elementic bronze to hear elementic pulses, and they can use their ferrochemical copper to store memories. The name Metalmapper also comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook. Metalmappers have the reputation of being meticulous chroniclers of Metalborn. I like that reputation. They would be really good scholars when it came to studying the metallic arts on Scadrial. If they get good enough with their elementic bronze, they can pick up on the subtle differences between elementic pulses and use that to gain different knowledge about the different elementic metals. And they can store all this knowledge that they learn in their copper mind. Other than that, I mean, they would be pretty good at tracking down allomancers as well, so maybe they could be a detective. Metalmapper is another good combo, in my opinion. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Next up, we have Omen. Omens can use their elementic electrum to reveal their future, and they can use their ferrochemical nigrosyl to store investiture. When you burn elementic electrum, you'll see shadows coming out from your center of self, and they'll show different possibilities of what you could do in your immediate future. It doesn't seem to be all that useful unless you're fighting another Allomancer that's burning atium, because it will throw off the atium shadows. But maybe it has some cool uses that we just haven't seen on page yet. And if we get a character that specializes in Electrum, I'm sure they would find more uses for it. And ferrochemical nigrosyl is another ferrochemical metal that we really don't know much about. The Ars Arcanum even says that the people of Terrace don't truly know what they're doing when they use these powers. I've seen some theories where people speculate that a Twinborn with nigrosyl ferochemy could store their allomantic ability in their nigrosyl mind and basically reduce how strong they are in their allomantic ability, and then they could tap that investiture at a later time to increase their strength in their allomantic ability. I don't personally think it works that way based on what we've seen in the Bands of Mourning. It seems that you just store your whole ability to use that allomancy. In that case, it would work more like a copper mind where you store something discrete. So you either have the ability to use your allomancy or you don't, depending on if you have it stored in your nigrosyl mind. I went into detail on this in another part, so I won't go super deep into that. I don't think this is a very good combination. I'm gonna put it in C tier. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you see any potential uses that I'm just overlooking. At the very end of this series, I'm gonna go through the whole combined list and make some adjustments. So if you could persuade me to move around one of these Twinborn types, do so. Next up, we have Year Spanner. Year Spanners can use their allomantic cadmium to slow down time in a bubble around themselves, and they can use their ferrochemical gold to store health. The name Year Spanner comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook, and they have the reputation of seeming to have extraordinarily long lifespans. Okay, so yeah, they probably would seem to live for a very long time, because when you slow down time in a cadmium bubble around yourself, everything outside of that bubble looks like it's moving rapidly from your perspective. And from the outside looking in, it looks like you're just sitting extremely still, barely moving. So you could use your cadmium bubble to speed up time outside of the bubble and basically go into the future. You're gonna age slower than everything outside of the bubble. And with your ferrochemical gold, that also would help you live longer because you can heal from wounds that would be deadly to normal people as long as you store up enough health. Ferrochemical gold is obviously a very good power to have, but it's one of those powers that would be pretty detrimental to store. You're gonna have to be sick while you're actively storing it. Even if you're only storing a little bit of your health at a time, you're still probably gonna feel like you have a cold, and that's never fun. Now, I get that that has a huge upside when you're tapping it. I think this Year Spanner combo would also be pretty good in combat situations. They can throw up their cadmium bubble around themselves and somebody else, like an opponent, and then they could just fight that person one-on-one. But overall, I don't think cadmium is a great allomantic ability. I'm gonna put Year Spanner in B tier. Next up, we have Moth. Moths can use their allomantic duralumin to enhance the current metal being burned within themselves, and they can use their ferrochemical brass to store warmth. Now, this is another example of a gnat in the Twinborn world. Since they can't burn any other allomantic metals, they can't really use their duralumin to do anything. So this is going straight to D tier. Next up, we have Ceasefire. Ceasefires can use their allomantic brass to soothe the emotions of others, and they can use their ferrochemical gold to store health. I think a Ceasefire Twinborn is the perfect person to send to negotiate in a war situation. You can send them into enemy territory to meet with leaders, and you don't have to really worry about them being killed as long as they have enough health stored in their gold mines. And they can use their allomantic brass to help persuade the leaders of the enemy to make the war go your way. I imagine Ceasefire Twinborn types would be very confident in themselves. They would probably walk with somewhat of a swagger because they know that they can use their emotional allomancy to basically get what they want. And they also know that they're extremely hard to kill. They don't have to worry about running their mouth too much because even if they are attacked by another person, they can just heal with their gold mine. I think this is a great combination. I'm putting Ceasefire in S tier. Next up, we have Weaver. Weavers can use their allomantic electrum to speed up time, and they can use their ferrochemical duralumin to store store connection. Okay, I just realized I made a mistake when making this card. Obviously, Allomantic Electrum doesn't let you speed up time. Allomantic Electrum reveals your future. So I'll have to make an update to that card, but for this video, I'm going to leave it as is. So yes, Allomantic Electrum lets them see shadows of their future self, and Ferrochemical Duralumin, of course, lets you store connection. I don't really think that these two powers build on each other in any like significant way, but storing and tapping connection is a really good ferrochemical ability. You can store your connection and make yourself less noticeable by others, and then you can tap that connection at a later time to make people really like you. You're gonna seem very charismatic, and people are gonna want to be around you and tell you information and things like that. So yeah, I think any Twinborn type with Ferrochemical Duralumin would be really good for spies and espionage situations. I think it would be very interesting to see how tapping connection while you're burning your Electrum would influence the Electrum shadows, but I think all we can really do is speculate at this point on that. Let me know if you think Electrum shadows would be influenced by either storing your connection or tapping it. I'm gonna put Weaver in B tier. The Allomantic Electrum really brings it down. I was almost gonna put it in A tier. Next up, we have Chronicler. Chroniclers can use their Allomantic Gold to reveal their past self, and they can use their Ferrochemical Copper to store memories. The name Chronicler comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook, and Chroniclers have the reputation of records the past so they do not repeat it, which is an interesting reputation to have. So when you burn your Allomantic Gold, you see a gold shadow. This gold shadow is a version of yourself that could have been if you made different choices in your past. Burning gold is described as a very strange and like surreal feeling. You can see through your own eyes and the eyes of the gold shadow at the same time, and you apparently think thoughts with your own mind and the mind of the gold shadow. It hasn't really been delved into too deeply. In Era 1, Vin and Kelsier both didn't really burn it because of the weird feeling that it gave them. And in Era 2, Miles burned it every so often just to remind himself that he was a gold allomancer, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, we didn't really see it be very useful. I mean, if you have the ability to store all of the information that you gain while burning gold by thinking with the mind of your other self, and you're able to store that all in your copper mind, maybe that could be useful. You could at least compare and contrast the different versions of yourself when burning gold. It's definitely an interesting combo to think about, but I don't know if it would be that useful. I think it's gonna have to fall at the top of C tier for me. Allomantic Gold is really bringing this one down for me. Next up, we have Old Soul. Old Souls can use their Allomantic Gold to reveal their past self, and they can use their Ferrochemical Nigrosil to store investiture. These are both powers that we don't know too much about, so maybe they could have some cool combination when used together, but we just don't have enough information to even know that. So I can't rank this one high at all. This has to go in C tier for me. Next, we have Loadstone. Loadstones can use their Allomantic Iron to pull metals, and they can use their Ferrochemical Nigrosil to store investiture. A lot of the Twinborn types for this part have the ferrochemical ability of Nigrosil, and since we don't know that much about it, I really can't rank them accurately. I hope we learn more about it in Era 3. So Lodestone for me is gonna have to go C tier. And I think I'm gonna move Navigator up to S tier. Next up, we have Godsend. Godsends can use their Allomantic Nigrosil to enhance the Allomantic burn of a target, and they can use their Ferrochemical Chromium to store fortune. So for Allomantic Nigrosil, you can put your hand on another Allomancer and burn your Nigrosil, and as long as that other Allomancer is burning an Allomantic metal, that Allomantic metal will be burned rapidly and basically give their Allomancy a boost. And for Ferrochemical Chromium, you can store your fortune, and while you're actively storing that fortune, you're gonna be less lucky, or at least that's what we know of it so far. Of course, fortune in the Cosmere is related to other things as well, like seeing the future. But for this series, we're just going on what the Ars Arcanum says about Chromium, and in the Ars Arcanum, it refers to it as storing your luck. So yeah, if you have enough of your fortune stored up and you tap it at a later time, You could be very lucky. It could be good in gambling situations. I think a godsend would be great on a team of Allomancers, of course, thanks to their Nigrosyl. I've talked in past videos of how Allomantic Nigrosyl can also be used offensively. Since these powers don't necessarily work together very well, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Next up, we have Wrestler. Wrestlers can use their Allomantic Pewter to increase their physical strength, and they can use their Ferrochemical Bindalloy to store energy. So with Ferrochemical Bindalloy, this energy is stored in the form of calories or water. So you can basically eat a bunch of food and just be storing all of those calories in your Bindalloy mind, and then at a later time, you can tap that Bindalloy mind and go without eating for quite a while, depending on how much you store up. And then you can do the same with water. Allomantic Pewter is my favorite allomantic metal. It not only increases your physical strength, but it also increases your physical prowess. It increases your balance. It makes you just more graceful and lithe and all that in general. It also increases your stamina. You can run for a long time. We see Vin, Kelsier, and Ham in Era 1 do what they refer to as pewter dragging, where they just flare their pewter for extended periods of time while running, and they can just run for, I think it was 10 hours straight, maybe 12 hours straight. It was a long time. So allomantic pewter is a very useful power to have. I don't think that these really build on each other though. Actually, you know what? I think it would build on each other, because if you're pewter dragging and running for 10 plus hours at a time, you could just be drawing on your Bindalloy mind anytime you got thirsty or hungry. So yeah, that could be really good to sustain you. They'd probably be good as bodyguards and things like that. They wouldn't really have to take any meal breaks because of their Bindalloy minds. Let's go in S tier for me. Next up, we have Propeller. Propellers can use their allomantic steel to push metals, and they can use their Ferrochemical Nigrosyl to store investiture. So allomantic steel is actually the most popular allomantic ability. According to you guys, you voted on the polls on my channel, and steel won the allomancy bracket. But as I'm ranking Twinborn, I have to consider both metals together, and I don't think Ferrochemical Nigrosyl is a great combo to have with allomantic steel, basically because we don't really know how it works yet. So Propeller can't go high for me. It has to go in C tier as well. It's going to go really high in C tier though. And I'm actually going to move Chronicler up to B tier. The last type for this video is Inspirer. Inspirers can use their allomantic zinc to riot the emotions of others, and they can use their ferrochemical cadmium to store breath. Allomantic zinc is great for the same reasons that allomantic brass is great. You can target the emotions of others and enhance those emotions, and you can basically manipulate people, get them to do what you want. And then ferrochemical cadmium, in my opinion, it's not a great metal. It might be better when we get to the space age of the Cosmere. But other than that, I mean, storing up your breath and tapping it at a later time, I don't really see it being that useful unless maybe if somebody is strangling you, you could be tapping your cadmium and it would help you out in that situation. Or if your hobby is to dive in the ocean. But yeah, these two powers don't really build on each other. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. There is my final tier ranking for the 16 Twinborn types of this part. We are now officially at the halfway point of the series, which means we only have 128 more Twinborn types to rank. And here is the combined tier list of all the parts of the series so far. It's getting absolutely packed. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron or a channel member. Those will be linked in the description below. There's another way to support the channel as well that also gets you a free audiobook. That's thanks to the sponsor of this video, Audible. All you have to do is use the link in the description of this video and sign up for a free Premium Plus membership, and Audible will give you a credit. You can use this credit to get any audiobook of your choice completely free. If you do the free trial and get the free audiobook and you decide that Audible isn't for you, that's fine. You can cancel your membership and you still get to keep the book. And if you've never tried audiobooks, this is a great opportunity to try it for the first time. My favorite part about it is that it lets you multitask. You can listen to your favorite books while you're driving or cooking or doing laundry or whatever other task you may be doing. So get your free audiobook today by using the link in the description below. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in part 9.